Chapter 4. City L1. Go ahead L1. I need a wants and warrants on the Michigan State registration. 10-4. Go ahead. C, as in Charles, N, as in Nelson, Y, as in Young, 5, 5, 7. Copy L1. Stand by. 10-4. It was almost time for Kim's shift to be over as he decided to make one last stop for the morning. It was a little Ford Ranger that had failed to stop at a stop sign at the end of Apple Street. L1 City. Go ahead. Be advised that registration comes back to Eric Myers out of Frankfort, Michigan. Be advised that there is a priority felony warrant for him in the murders of 2 Michigan police officers. So, what do you think about Ronnie? Sterling asked Belinda as they both headed for the grocery store. Sterling was headed to the store alone, from the DeCluse residence, then met Belinda halfway. I've got a crush on him. And I love him. I just wish that Ronnie would officially call this thing between us a relationship. Trust me, Belinda. It's coming. Ronnie looks forward to every second that he gets with you, and he always talks good about you as well. Just give him time. Are you sure, Sterling? Belinda asked just as they walked into the Come and Go gas station on the corner of Finley and Interstate 40. City to F8. Go ahead City. Ah. Did you copy F12's pullover? 10-4 City. F8 to F12. Go ahead F8. Stand by. Do not exit your patrol car. City F8. Go ahead F8. Please TX F14 and F46. Advise them of F12's pullover and for them to assemble with me at the Safeway parking lot kitty corner from the Come and Go. Also tell them that this is a LL priority involving Eric Myers. 10-4 F8. Stand by. As they walked into the gas station, Sterling and Belinda went directly over to the cold beverage cooler and each picked out a soda. Hey Belinda. Let me pay for that. Okay. You don't have to pay for it, Sterling. Come on now, let's get out of here. Belinda and Sterling were only in the gas station for about 1 minute when they were both ready to go and headed up to the cashier's counter. Thank you for offering to pay for it though. I'm sure that Ronnie would be proud of you. Hey look Belinda, Sterling said as they walked out the door of the police department. Pointing across the parking lot of the gas station, the intersection of Finley Lane and Interstate 40, and then onto the corner of Safeway's parking lot, he could see 2 city patrol cars, a couple county patrol cars, and Karina and Nicole. I wonder what's going on. Staying directly behind the pulled-over Ford Ranger, all that Kim could think to do is to act as though nothing was wrong. Looking through the windshield of his patrol car and into the rear window of the little Ford Ranger, Kim could see that the driver must have been becoming agitated as he started to light the third cigarette, since he originally pulled the guy over, looking back and forth between the side mirrors and the rear view mirror. Then suddenly the brake lights flashed as the truck began to move. Quickly Kim responded by turning on the siren quickly, then turning it back off. With this attempt failing, Kim put the patrol car into drive. City L1. Go ahead L1. Be advised that I'm now in pursuit heading east on Apple Street towards Finley Lane. 10-4 L1. City to all units, be advised that L1 is in pursuit of a Ford Ranger, owned by Eric Myers, who is wanted out of Michigan for the killings of 2 officers. F8 copy. F14 copy. F46 copy. L1 to all units, be advised that the suspect is turning north on Finley going towards Interstate 40. He's headed right for you guys. 10-4 L1. F14 and F46 block the north side of the intersection. I'll block the east side. 10-4. Jesus. I wonder what's going on, Belinda, Sterling said excitedly as the patrol cars and Corina's car suddenly spun out into the street with their lights running. Seconds before that they both heard a siren that sounded as though it was only about a block away. Wow. Look, Belinda, Sterling continued as he pointed towards Corina's car. I didn't know that she had flashing lights on her car. Cool man. Not watching exactly where he should have been watching, Sterling strayed out away from Belinda as he stumbled out of the Come and Go's parking lot and into Finley Lane. Oh no. A pedestrian just ran into the path of the truck. Kim began to yell into the radio, the truck's gonna hit him. Reaching down to the siren control box, Kim turned the mechanism on in hopes of. Suddenly, hearing the squeal of a siren again, Sterling turned just in time to see a truck headed towards him. Instantaneously, to Sterling anyway, it seemed as though, as he made contact with the speeding vehicle, that he had begun to do a somersault over the front bumper and hood. In slow motion, Sterling's hand and right arm both bounced off of the windshield just as his left arm and his head had just cleared the windshield, then came down onto the hard edge of the box behind the cab. With the impact of his head on the rear of the truck, the pain that he momentarily felt within his right arm and hand, and his legs, that had hit the front bumper, had instantly dissipated into numbness. As he hit the ground, Sterling's back was on the pavement. He could see a single patrol car skidding to a stop right by him, yet he couldn't move. His eyes had a speck of dirt in them. He couldn't move his eyelids. The officer had climbed out of the patrol car and had walked right up to Sterling and knelt down beside him. The officer was yelling, "Are you all right? Don't move, help is on the way." Sterling watched the officer put his hand on his forehead and neck. Sterling couldn't feel either touch. "Sterling. It's all right, Sterling," Corina yelled. "I'm here to help you, honey." "Corina," Kim said loudly. "Corina." "What, Kim? What?" "Corina. He's dead." He said what? Sterling thought to himself. I can't be dead. I can still hear. Sterling could see blood spewing away from him at his point of vision. "Hey Sterling?" A voice called out. Sterling recognized the voice, yet still couldn't see anything other than the officer's shoes right in front of him. "Corina, just relax and go to my trunk and get a white sheet. Understand me?" Kim persisted as other officers took after the suspect. Finally, at Kim's request, Corina walked around Sterling and then to the trunk of Kim's unit. "Oh, there's Corina. Maybe she'll realize that I'm not dead." Hopes of that quickly dissipated as he watched Corina take a white sheet out of the car and return to Kim's side. Then, seconds after handing the sheet to Kim, Sterling's entire field of vision turned white as the sheet was draped over his body. "Sterling. I know that you can't see me, but you need to listen to me." "Who is that?" Sterling thought. "Sterling. It's Lloyd Bruce. Remember me? But you're dead. I can't even talk. How can?" "Sterling. I can hear your thoughts. Yes, I am dead. And so are you, Sterling." Suddenly an image appeared between his face and the sheet. It was Lloyd? "Lloyd. What's going on, man? I can't move or feel anything. I'm scared." "Of course you are, Sterling. You seem to really think that you're not dead or something, dude. But you are dead and you're moving your body." "No, Sterling. What you see, or think what you see, is what you remember me looking like. All that is really here is my spirit, man. And your spirit too." "But if that's true..." Stopped in mid-thought, Sterling realized that he could still see Lloyd, but only now he was in Malachi's home. He was in Malachi's bedroom. There. "Malachi. Hey Malachi. Malachi. Listen to me. Malachi. Sterling, Sterling, Sterling. He can't hear you, man." "But I can hear him. He's crying. Lloyd, he is my friend." "Why is he crying?" "Hey. There's Ronnie. Ronnie. He can't hear me either?" "No. Sterling, he cannot hear you. You are dead." "Ronnie's crying too." "Why is he crying, Lloyd?" "Sterling. Ronnie and Malachi are crying because you were just killed. There's Eddie." Lloyd pointed out as Eddie came into the room. "See. Eddie's crying too." I wish that I could make them feel better. It makes me feel sad to see them all crying like this. Well, Sterling. They're crying like this because you were a very important person to them. And you still are. Is there any way that I can talk to them? Yeah. Eddie knows how to perform seances of which allows us to talk to them. Eddie, Malachi, Ronnie, and Nicole have been in contact with James Alberts and I for the last 5 years or so. I remember James Alberts. He lived right across the street from. Hey Sterling. How are you doing? James suddenly asked as he came into Malachi's bedroom also. Hi James. How are you doing? Sterling asked. Well, I'm doing better than you, I see. I never ran out into the road without looking both ways. Ha ha ha. Really funny James, Sterling slashed back. Okay guys. Relax. We have a problem here that we need to try and fix before it's too late. Lloyd said loudly. I'm sorry James. Sterling said, what problems are you talking about, Lloyd? Sterling took another good look at his friends as they continued to cry, as he watched Nicole also came into the room with wet eyes. Malachi, Ronnie, and Eddie are all about to kill the guy that just killed you. We can't allow that to happen. But what does it matter if they kill him? Lloyd. Listen to what you're saying. That man killed me and, in turn, hurt my friends. Our friends very much. Let them tear his heart out. Sterling. There is something about Malachi, Ronnie, and Eddie that you don't know, dude. What could there possibly be that I don't know about them, Lloyd? I've lived with them for the last few years. I've gone through school with them. And they're vampires. James interrupted. What? Vampires? Yeah, Sterling. Ronnie, Malachi, Eddie, Karina, Mrs. Sanchez, and Ronnie's and Belinda's soon-to-be son and daughter, and Malachi's and Nicole's soon-to-be son. All of them are vampires. And we are all still their friends and we want them to do the right things, and the right things have nothing to do with revenge. I can't believe it, Malachi said as Nicole sat next to him and comforted him. He was just doing all right. He just went to the store and... It's all right, honey. It's gonna be all right, Nicole continued to say as she held him tightly. Where is this guy, Nicole? Ronnie asked as he wiped a tear off of his face. We don't know. He got too far ahead when we chased him out of town. He was headed towards Maybell when we lost him. What color was his truck? Eddie asked as he sat down on the other side of Malachi. As he sat down he carefully draped one arm over his friend's shoulder. It was red. Bright cherry red. A little Ford Ranger. A newer model, either 2016 or 2017. Also, one of the sides of the rear window has a Harley-Davidson sticker on it. About the entire height of the window. He could probably be about anywhere by now. All that we can do is keep our eyes and ears open, Ronnie said as he kneeled down on the floor in front of his brother. Then, as he was knelt down, he rested his head down on Malachi's lap. Opening up his eyes, Malachi looked down at the top of Ronnie's head and then softly began to massage the side of his temple. Using his other hand he wiped a tear that had just left the corner of his little brother's eye. He won't get away, Ronnie. I promise. Then, turning his head to face Eddie, he continued. Understand me? He won't get away with this. Yeah. I understand. Ronnie answered. Looking up to his brother, without moving his head, he repeated himself. I do understand. The following night all three of the boys just sat around, back and forth between each other's rooms as they waited for David, Karina, and Nicole to fall asleep. There was very little conversation between Malachi, Ronnie, and Eddie. Just silence, then once in a while, a sudden change in facial expression followed by an instant of in-sync eye contact between the three. As the boys all noticed that everyone, besides themselves, was asleep, they stepped out into the warm air of July. This particular summer, 2017, was setting record temperatures. As the night rolled around, the lows were still in the 90s, gusts of wind, out of the south, raised the temperature to over 100. Stepping off of the back porch, The boys instantly took flight into elevations that left Craig looking like a single speck of light within the distance. Rather than flying in a tight cluster, as they usually would, they allowed distances, of up to a quarter mile, between them as they quickly headed west. As each of them came to another group of lights, they would, individually, lower their elevation enough to see vehicles on the ground. As they flew, just over rooftops, they turned and moved their heads efficiently enough to observe all of the vehicles under them without slowing down. In fact, if anything, they increased their speed until they each reached the Pacific Ocean. In all, the one-way trip took roughly 5 minutes from Craig to the coast. As they reached the coast they moved south, and then turned to head east. Quickly and efficiently observing every vehicle west of Craig, Colorado, and between the borders of Mexico and Canada. Suddenly, as Eddie had lowered himself over the community of Chino Valley, Arizona, he suddenly noticed a cherry red Ford Ranger. As Eddie quickly turned back for another view he noticed a Harley-Davidson sticker in the rear window right behind the passenger seat headrest. There were no streetlights or house lights in sight. No houses or anything else, except for a street sign that read in Navajo Place. As Eddie quietly landed on the ground, just a few feet behind the small truck, Malachi and Ronnie were soon by his side. Softly lifting himself back into the air, Eddie carefully glided over the top of the truck and then landed firmly on the pavement facing the front window, just within arm's reach of the hood. As Eddie stared back, into the direction of Malachi and Ronnie, he watched them walk up to the doors of the vehicle and then took part, with Eddie, in peering into the cab where a man slept behind the wheel. It was a weird feeling. He knew that he was tired after a long day of staying hidden from the police. The heat of the Arizona summer had overwhelmed the inability for his air conditioner to keep him cool. Periodically, turning on his truck, so that he could use the air conditioner, he would turn it off moments later to save on gas. Why did I react the way that I did in Michigan? Why couldn't those damn pigs just leave me alone? And, why did that kid, in Colorado, run out in front of me? Damn kid. Left dents all the way across my front bumper to the tailgate. Should have turned around to make sure that the kid was dead. And why the... Opening his eyes he realized that he had an audience. An audience that seemed to have come from nowhere. Get away from my truck. The man yelled as he carefully rolled down his window. There were 3 of them. One in front, and then one on either side of him. As he rolled down his window to yell he found himself staring into the eyes of perhaps a young teenager, that looked as though he had on Halloween costume parts of a vampire, as there were extended teeth protruding out of the teen's mouth. I said to get the hell away from my truck, you freak. As the man slowly slid his hand over to the passenger's seat, he reached underneath a newspaper and pulled out a handgun that was made of some sort of shiny metal that reflected the light from the full moon. As the man began to roll down his window further with one hand he used the index finger of his other hand to take the safety off. Suddenly the man felt as though the truck had been hit, from the passenger's side, then he turned his head to find the door missing and the person, standing outside of the passenger's side, grabbing at the gun that he held. Get the fuck away. The man yelled as he pulled the trigger, hitting the person in the arm. Next thing the man knew, the gun was ripped out of his hand and thrown out onto the shoulder of the road, as the person now grabbed a hold of his arm. Let me go, he yelled again. Help. Help me. With another feeling of his truck being struck, the driver's side door had suddenly been ripped off and flown across the pavement, leaving behind a trail of sparks. Instantaneously, the young-looking teen, from the driver's side, had now grabbed his other arm and began to pull. Get away. Help me. The man yelled. Suddenly, just as his left arm was grabbed, the person that was standing in front of the truck had now jumped onto the hood, hitting the windshield with his fist. Within seconds the person, on the hood, had removed the entire sheet of glass and was grabbing around the man's neck. As the man could no longer yell, he had also realized that he couldn't breathe either as the grip of the hand around his neck tightened. Then, running now on pure adrenaline as he tightened his grip on the man's neck, Eddie reached his head into the cab of the truck and sunk his teeth into the side of the man's neck, just below his right ear. Simultaneously Ronnie, as he pulled at the man's left arm, sunk his teeth into the man's neck just below his left ear. Then, as Malachi pulled harder onto the man's right arm, sunk his teeth into his wrists. The three of them continued to feed off of the fresh warm blood for almost a half hour before the flow of blood had come to a complete stop. Even then, the boys continued their attempts to harvest for another 20 minutes before they all stopped. Then, as they all let go of the man, they all stepped back, together, behind the truck and regrouped. "Malachi. You've been shot," Ronnie said loudly. "I know. I'm just hoping that it heals before we get home," Malachi said as he pulled his t-shirt off. "Let me see it," Eddie said as he stepped up to Malachi's side. "Well, it looks like that it has started to heal already." He started using his hand as he massaged the edges of the gunshot wound, when all three of them suddenly noticed a set of headlights coming from down the road. "Okay guys. Straight up." Instantly Malachi, Ronnie, and Eddie went up about 500 feet and then just hovered in one place. As they looked down below they could see the car stop next to the Ford Ranger as the driver exited the car. "Let's go home guys." Ronnie interrupted the moment of silence. "But first Malachi, let's wrap your shirt around your arm." It was quickly decided that it would be much easier to just wear the t-shirt. Then, with that decision, the boys headed straight for Craig, Colorado, of which took about 10 minutes. As they all landed firmly on the ground, behind the garage, they immediately headed in the back door of the basement. "Yeah, I do agree with Nicole," Malachi said suddenly. "I think that a handheld GPS would help out a lot." "Funny. Come on into my room so that we can look at your arm, Malachi," Eddie said as he turned on the basement light. Then, as they walked into the darkened bedroom, Malachi immediately sat down on Eddie's bed and removed his shirt again. "Damn. It's almost all healed now. Look at that," Eddie continued as he reached out to touch it. "Stop." Ronnie spoke up as he intercepted Eddie's hand. "I think that it would heal faster if we left our hands off of it. Guys. If there is as much as one scratch on Malachi, it could be used as evidence that we had something to do with this guy's death." "Ronnie. I don't think that anyone is prepared to believe that we could have been Arizona and Craig, Colorado all in 20 minutes period of time. Where's our proof that we are here right now?" Ronnie countered. "Eddie. Call Pizza Hut and ask for 2 large pizzas with everything, 2 orders of breadsticks, without garlic, and make sure that they bring a receipt," Malachi said with a smirk look on his face. Eddie immediately flew upstairs and did as he was told. "Good," Ronnie said as he watched Eddie leave the room. "How about your blood next to the truck where you got shot?" Picking up his t-shirt, Malachi balled it up and then threw it at his brother. "Do you see any blood on that?" Opening up the shirt, Ronnie examined where Malachi had gotten shot. The hole was still there, yet the blood had all gone away. "Actually, that's real good. I guess that this Eric Myers got his reward in full. And you know, I enjoyed myself tonight also. He fully deserved everything that happened tonight."
In breaking news, this morning on CNN, a suspect of murdering 2 police officers in Michigan and a 16-year-old boy, in Colorado, was found dead early this morning by Chino Valley officers in Arizona. The suspect, 44-year-old, Eric Myers, was apparently mauled to death by something that had also destroyed his vehicle. Authorities are puzzled by their findings, yet also relieved that the bloodbath may have now come to an end. If anyone has any information on the death of Eric Myers, you are urged to call the Arizona State Highway Patrol at 1-800-555-3351. Now, for other news.
"Oh my God, Dave. Justice did find a way," Karina said as she sat up to the edge of the couch. After tossing and turning all night, in her sleep, Karina and David had gotten up out of bed, at about 7 o'clock, and turned on the news. As the news of Sterling's killer's death was broadcasted, Karina once again, as she did all night, began to cry. "Well. That's one less child killer on the streets," Dave responded as he held onto his wife. Though he hadn't shown it, Dave too had cried over the child that had grown into the hearts of the entire family, only to be taken away by a violent death, by a ruthless killer, who had already proven himself to be cold-hearted enough to take human lives. As Karina got up out of the couch, to turn off the television, Nicole came out of the bedroom and down the hallway into the living room. "What's going on?" Nicole asked as she noticed Karina crying. "Eric Myers was killed last night. Police officers, in Arizona, found his dead body early this morning." "Good." Nicole interrupted as she wrapped her arms around Karina and then began to cry. There couldn't be any better news. Then, as Karina let go of Nicole, she went out into the kitchen to start breakfast. In a sense of celebrating the morning news, Karina decided to make French toast, of which all three of the boys liked, along with Nicole, David, and herself. As Karina prepared the French toast, Nicole fried sausage as David set the table and then went to wake the boys up. He also wanted to be the first, so spread the good news. It was about another 15 minutes later that Ronnie, Malachi, and Eddie had come out of their rooms and into the kitchen. David hadn't gotten the excited response out of the kids that he had very much hoped for. Without leading himself into any assumptions, however, he passed it off as being that the boys were still upset over Sterling's death. "I'm happy to see that you guys went out last night for a while," Karina said as she was the last one to sit at the table. "You guys weren't out for very long though. I heard you come in. I hope that you guys had some fun." "We did," Ronnie responded. "And then we ordered some pizza afterwards." "Well, what's so fun in just a couple of hours?" Karina asked with a slight smile. "Delivering justice," Malachi answered for Ron. A couple of seconds later, as if it was a slow reflex, Karina's jaw about hit the floor as she stared back at her eldest son. Dave had, evidently, not caught what had been just said as he served himself a couple slices of French toast. Nicole had just removed the rubber band off of the morning's newspaper, saw the Eric Myers death on the front page, and then heard Malachi's response all at once. Nobody said another word until breakfast was over. "Did I miss something?" David asked as he began to wash dishes. It seems that everyone suddenly went mute. "Ah. No honey, everything's just fine," Karina responded as she made an image, with her fingers to her lips, like as if she was zipping her mouth shut, towards Malachi and Ronnie as they were just leaving the kitchen. About an hour later, Karina went into Malachi's bedroom where she knew that Malachi, Ronnie, Eddie, and Nicole were at. "Hey guys, listen. I'm not gonna stand here and tell you guys that what you've done is wrong. God knows that Michigan would have only housed the guy in a correctional facility, where he would have a chance of escaping and then killing again. What I am gonna tell you, however, is that David and I love all four of you very much. We loved Sterling too. Eddie, you and Nicole have always been a wonderful addition to our family. Just as it has with Sterling, it hurts us very much any time that something happens to one of you. Each one of you are our children." Karina finished. "Mom," Malachi spoke up. "What we did last night we do not regret. With the circumstances anyhow. Just as you have described your relationship to Sterling. Like a son basically, Sterling was also like a brother to us. If this were to ever happen again, to either you, Dad, Nicole, Ronnie, or Eddie, we would react just the same as we did last night. We will track the person down and kill them and, in the process, either destroy or kill whatever it is, or whomever it is, that is harboring the individual." Pausing for a moment, as he made eye contact with his mother, Ronnie, Nicole, and Eddie, he continued. "If this should ever happen, Mom, I can promise you that nothing will ever connect any of us to the destruction that remains." "All right, I agree with your choice," Karina said. Then, just as she was about to walk out of the bedroom, she leaned over and picked up a shirt off of the computer desk and looked at what almost looked like a gunshot hole. "What happened to your shirt?" she asked as she looked at Malachi. "Malachi got shot last night," Ronnie said without thinking about what he was saying to his mother. "Shot?" Karina screamed. Then, in a much quieter tone of voice, ordered Ronnie, Eddie, and Nicole out of the room. As they left, Karina shut the door behind them, only leaving herself and Malachi in the bedroom. "Get your clothes off right now." "Mom." "No, Malachi. Not another word. Get your clothes off right now. Everything, socks, t-shirt, underwear, everything." As she continued to ramble off items of clothing, Malachi quickly removed his t-shirt, shoes, socks, and then stopped as he unbuckled his belt. Everything Malachi. Malachi hadn't seen his mother this angry since he was a young child, living in Ridgeview, and he had left the apartment, while his parents were asleep, just to play with Nicole on the sidewalk off of their porch. Pulling his pants off, he paused again as he stared at his mom. "Malachi, your underwear too, damn it." Though he felt very embarrassed, he pulled them down to the floor and then stepped out of them. Hiding his crotch behind two open hands, he quickly pressed her last button. "Arms in the air, Malachi, and then move only when I tell you to and how I tell you to. Do you understand me, mister?" "Yes," he growled back. Viewing the front half of his body, she only took notice to a discolored spot within his belly button. As she decided that it was only a freckle, she then directed him to turn to where she could see his back. Without finding anything out of shape, smoothness, or discolored, she then told him to sit down so that she could see his legs. As he sat on the bed, she used her own hands to move and examine each inch two of the limbs and then did the same with his arms. "Alright. Now Ronnie just said that you got shot. Where, Malachi?" "Right here." Raising his left arm, Malachi pointed to the interior side of muscle of his upper arm. "It's healed already, Mom. That's what I was trying to tell you before you flipped out on me." "Flipped out, Malachi? You are my son, and I was just told that you were shot. Just exactly how do you think that I should have reacted? Excuse me. I don't hear you." "I'm sorry, Mom," Malachi said as his own eyes began to water up. "I just didn't think." "Malachi, just remember this. Not just me, but rather all of us, love you more than you'll ever know. Yes, I forgot about the fact that we can survive a gunshot. Unless it's to the heart. And it's this that I want you to remember, hun." Karina was now much more relaxed as she continued. "Now get dressed." Before he even had a chance to put on his underwear, Karina hugged him tightly. "I love you, Malachi." "I love you too, Mom." Then, as quick as he could, before she opened the door, he threw on his underwear and jeans. Just before she stepped out of the room, she turned back and looked at him. "Because of the fact that you guys are gonna take steps that at times could be dangerous, to protect our family, I'm gonna see what I can do to get ballistic vests for all of you. The only times that you guys would be using them is to hand out justice, therefore you guys can leave them in the closet. My personal vest, for work, is made by Second Chance Body Armor in Central Lake, Michigan. I'll call them today." "Alright. Alright, Mom." Malachi answered and then looked down as he picked his jeans up off of the floor. "Hey, Mom." He spoke up again before leaving, "I love you, and again, I'm sorry." "I know you are, hun. Just remember that we love you too. Okay? Alright. Would you please send Ronnie in here? I need to let him know that he did the right thing by not hiding anything from you. Well, he's one step ahead of you. Here he is." Just as she finished, Ronnie walked in as she left. "Come here, Ron," Malachi said. Then, as he bent over, Malachi wrapped his arms tightly around his brother and hugged him. Standing back up straight, Malachi picked Ronnie off of the floor and held him close as he whispered in his ear. "You did the right thing, Ronnie. I'm not mad at you for anything. Okay, bud? Alright." Ronnie carefully wrapped his legs around Malachi's waist and then pushed his upper body away so that he could face his brother. "You know, Malachi. Mom is right. I love you so much that it would hurt me very badly if anything ever happened to you. It hurt me badly to lose Sterling the way we did. But you're much more to me than he, or anyone else ever has been." Pausing for a moment, Ronnie rubbed his finger down the center of Malachi's bare chest. "Let's get those ballistic tests as soon as possible. Mom's gonna do something about that today. And one more thing, Ronnie. You need to call and talk to and spend some time with Belinda. She watched Sterling get hit by that guy the other day." "Alright. Okay. I'll call her now." Ronnie finished and then hugged Malachi again before being set down onto the floor. On July 17, of 2017, Sterling was laid to rest beside his grandmother, Mrs. Henderson. Side by side to Sterling and Mrs. Henderson was Sterling's parents that had died many years prior to Sterling. It's sad how automobile accidents have destroyed this entire family, Malachi said as he looked down to the top of Sterling's casket. The white creme color of paint was highlighted by the bright red roses that had been set on the casket's lid, by those that came to the funeral. As Malachi looked back to his mom, through his dark sunglasses that he wore, Karina could see a tear rolling down his cheek. Sometimes it feels like that our family cheats death as those around us seem to have to walk on eggshells, on a daily basis, to survive one day to the next. The truth in Malachi's words had caused his mom to shed a few tears as she lightly put her arms over his and Ronnie's shoulders. As if it was meant to be, the sky was filled with just enough clouds to allow Malachi, Ronnie, and Eddie to attend the funeral. Ronnie had also fought his emotions as he stood beside his brother and Eddie. Together they stood alone with David, Karina, and Nicole as they watched the casket being slowly lowered into the ground, and with it, the last survivor of that entire family. "Goodbye, Sterling," Ronnie whispered. As they left the cemetery, David, Karina, Nicole, Eddie, Ronnie, and Malachi each seemed to have bowed towards Sterling's burial site, one last time, just prior to each of them climbing back into the car. With David behind the wheel, they slowly made their way home. For the most part, they all done the same thing, as they each climbed back into bed, tried to sleep, but instead, were taunted by their last memories of Sterling. More now than the first 2 nights after his death. "Hey, we can do a seance," Eddie thought to himself. "Hey Ronnie and Malachi." Eddie decided that the use of their ESP would be better than stirring the entire household. "If you guys would be interested in performing a seance, so that we can talk to Sterling, come on down to my room." Instantly Eddie could hear feet landing on the floor as they climbed out of bed. "Eddie." Malachi started back, with ESP, "I'm gonna bring Nicole, and also I think that this would be a good time to involve my mom in a seance. I think that this experience would help her too." Shocked by what Malachi was saying, he thought about his words, for a moment, and then agreed, with Malachi, that a seance would help Karina to realize that Sterling can remain part of the family as he has for the last 5 years. "Good idea, Malachi. Bring your mom too." As Ronnie and Nicole headed down the stairs, Malachi went up to his parents' bedroom door and lightly tapped on it. "Yes." Karina spoke up as she heard the knock. "Come on in." Opening the door, Malachi found his mom resting her head up onto one elbow as he entered the room. "Mom," he whispered. Pausing for a second, he walked right up to the bed, to see if his father was awake. As he found that his dad was asleep, he continued, "Ronnie, Eddie, Nicole, and I would like you to come downstairs. It's something very important." "Is everything alright?" Karina asked as she immediately began to get up out of bed. "Yeah. There's no emergency, but it is important for all of us. Maybe, at another time, and if you agree, we'll involve Dad in the future." Malachi decided to not say anything further until they were both in Eddie's bedroom. "Where are we going?" Karina asked as she reached the bottom of the first flight of stairs. "Into Eddie's bedroom. Ronnie, Nicole, and Eddie are waiting on us." As Karina and Malachi both walked into Eddie's bedroom, Eddie had already lit the candles and had his string thumb tacked to the floor. "Okay guys. What are you doing?" she asked in a soft, quiet tone of voice. "We are continuing our process of being open to you about important things going on in our lives." Ronnie spoke up as he sat down, Indian style, outside of the circle. "Karina, before I moved into your home 5 years ago, I had studied the process of seances." Eddie started. "Seances are a type of gateway to communicating with the dead." "Communicating with the dead?" Karina interrupted. "We have been in full contact with James Alberts and Lloyd Bruce since I moved into your home." "Lloyd and James?" Karina interrupted once again. With what Eddie was saying, she had a look on her face that showed that she was either extremely confused or lost for words. "Karina, would you please sit down with us? I honestly believe that this would help all of us." "Mom." Malachi called out from his sitting position, "It's alright. Please sit and then we'll take it from there." Karina was still dumbfounded by what she was hearing, yet, at the same time, she was lost for words. She just didn't know what to say, and so she chose to not say anything and just follow her son's directions promptly. Karina sat down on the floor yet didn't really know why except that her son had asked her to. Before sitting, Eddie turned off the bedroom light. We are gathering here today to welcome our friends, James, Lloyd, and Sterling to our circle. As we await our friends, we think of them and remember the love that we have always had in them and the love and joy that we would, very much, like to continue to share with. Hello guys. A demonic voice spoke out. I'm so happy to see. In mid-sentence the demonic voice quickly turned into that of Sterling's. That you are here to speak with us. Karina couldn't believe what was happening. If it weren't for the fact that she was personally hearing Sterling's voice, she wouldn't have considered it to even be possible. By her own fear, however, she kept her eyes closed. She felt petrified. I realize that it's been just a couple of days but I miss you very much. Karina. As she heard her name being called out by Sterling, she quickly opened her eyes to find herself staring into his face. Hello Karina. Hi Sterling. How are you doing honey? With her question she began to quietly cry as reality set in that it was really Sterling. I'm doing good Karina, I wish that things had turned out differently for my life. But that's because I love you guys so much. And you, Karina, made me feel like that I was really loved. You, Karina, are much more of a mother than I could have ever possibly asked for. You, David, Malachi, Ronnie, Eddie, and Nicole are the best family that I've ever had. Don't get me wrong, I loved my grandmother very much. She will always be my grandmother. But you guys will always be my family. Sterling. Karina started again, after she cleared her throat and wiped her eyes dry. You, and of course Malachi, Ronnie, Eddie, and Nicole, were always loved, very much, by all of us. And yes, we all miss you very much honey. As she continued, she began to cry again. We wish that. Karina. Sterling interrupted, I am here and I always will be. Do you understand me? I always will be here. And, as Malachi, Ronnie, Eddie, and Nicole know already, you guys can speak to me at any time that you want. Sterling. Malachi spoke up. I'm sorry that we weren't there by you when you got hit. Maybe if we... Malachi. Stop right there. Sterling said loudly, don't you ever blame yourselves for my death. Even as you said earlier today, you were born with the ability to cheat death. You heard me? Yeah. You don't think that I'd miss my own funeral, do ya? Yes, I was at my funeral with you guys. And you guys, Karina and David, did an excellent job of preparing my body. Sterling. Karina interrupted, we had to do a closed casket funeral. Your body was just too torn up. I know Karina. And what you had to work with, you guys had done a perfect job. I was buried with all of the respect in the world. I owe that respect to all of you guys. Then, turning to face Malachi again, Sterling continued. I'm sorry for raising my voice at you Malachi. But you had nothing to do with me dying. What's important Malachi, is that you've been an excellent big brother to Ronnie, Eddie, and myself. You could not have possibly done anything differently that would have changed anything. In my eyes and in my heart Malachi, you Ronnie, Eddie, and Nicole, and your parents, are perfect. Nicole. Sterling suddenly turned into Nicole's direction and pointed towards her belly. In 14 months from now you'll be pregnant with a baby boy. I know that Lloyd and James have already told you that he will grow up to be different from most people, other than being a vampire. All that I can personally say, however, is that I know that he will have the most perfect parents in the world. Then, turning to face Ronnie, he continued, and you Ronnie, you and Belinda will have both, a boy and a girl in about 68 months from now. You and Belinda will be the best possible parents in the world to them as well. Now, addressing Karina, Malachi, Eddie, Ronnie, and Nicole, you guys are the perfect family, and not one of you are at fault for my death. Hello guys. Instantaneously, as Sterling's face and voice disappeared, Lloyd's face and voice suddenly appeared, Malachi, Ronnie, and Eddie. We really do need to have a talk guys. A talk about seeking revenge. But Lloyd. Malachi interrupted. Malachi. Please just listen to me. I heard the conversation that you had with your mom. By my understanding, if this situation were to happen again, you would react just the same. Malachi. What do you think that the reality to revenge is? I don't know. What do you mean? What I mean is that one day, in the course of revenge, you will find yourself facing someone that you cannot beat. And, the more revenge that you dish out, the faster you will find that one person that you can't beat. Malachi, you. Pausing for a moment, he looked at Ronnie, Eddie, Nicole, and Karina, before he continued, guys, you do not want to be in the same place as Sterling, James and I. Hate to say it guys, but being dead is not as exciting as being alive. Yeah, we get to snoop into your personal business when you don't realize that we're right there beside you. Yeah, we get to eavesdrop on all of your personal conversations. But in the end, James and Sterling is all that I have on a regular basis. I like James and Sterling, but in reality, they're deadbeats. Nice humor, Lloyd. Nicole interrupted. Well, thank you, Nicole. I learned it from you guys. You guys are the most beautiful and wonderful family that I've ever known. And Karina. Yeah, Lloyd? Karina asked. Get those vests for the boys and make sure that they use them. The only way that penetration can kill them is through the heart. You reacted the way you did yesterday because of your motherly love towards the kids. You're a great mother, Karina, and you're gonna be a great grandmother. Thank you, Lloyd. And I did order those vests last night. I know. James told me that he was sitting on the couch, next to you, when you called Second Chance Body Armor. We always know Karina. For a moment there was total silence until Karina looked back up and saw James staring at her. Hello, Karina. It's been a long time since I've seen you. Hi, James. Karina started as she seemed to reach her hand out to him. Yeah, it has been a long time, hasn't it? Karina, you know, you've probably gone through more than any other mother in the world. You've dealt with the differences within your kids compared to other children. You have had to deal with 3 of those of your children's best friends dying unexpectedly. 2 within your own home. And now, you have had direct communication with all 3 of those friends today. For you, however, we weren't just friends but rather additional children to your own, Malachi and Ronnie. And then, of course, Eddie and Nicole. Karina, Lloyd, Sterling and I are able to see into your guys' future. We can see things before they happen. And we know about what you've been planning to do within the next couple days. With James saying this, Malachi, Ronnie, Nicole, and Eddie all turned heads to face her. What? What do you mean, James? Karina asked as she wasn't exactly sure of what he meant. About your job, Karina. Oh. That. Looking down at the floor for a moment, she tried to come up with an explanation. Then, as she looked back up, she looked at Eddie, Nicole, Ronnie, and Malachi. I'm planning to take an early retirement from the police department. But, why, Mom? Malachi asked. Well, because within my heart I feel that some of the things that happen, within our family and around our family, contradict my responsibilities as a police officer. And I've decided that no matter what, my family comes first. Therefore I'm gonna retire on the 20th of this month. 3 days from now. Larry Wallace and your father both know. This will also give me more time, at home, with you guys. Karina. Can you guess why I brought this up? James asked. No, James, I'm not sure why you did. Karina. Communication is a two-way street. Yes, it's important for Malachi, Ronnie, Eddie, and Nicole to be upfront and honest with you when something has taken place. They shouldn't hide anything from you. It is also important, Karina, for you to be upfront with them as well. None of you guys should be hiding anything from each other. Pausing, as James turned to face Eddie, he continued. Eddie. When you guys killed Eric Myers the other day, much more took place than what you're even aware of. That was your first blood, of which in return, has given you eternal life. Congratulations, Eddie. Now, as long as your heart isn't penetrated, or you're not overwhelmed by your allergies, you will live forever. Pausing, again, James turned to face Ronnie. Ronnie, my best friend, how are you doing, buddy? I'm doing all right, James. Just trying to get over Sterling's death, just as the rest of the family is. How are you doing, James? Actually, Ronnie, I'm doing pretty good, thank you. Looking up over Ronnie's head, James noticed a Power Ranger figure standing on the top of Eddie's dresser. Nice room decoration, Eddie. Ronnie, please pick that Power Ranger figure up and bring it over here. At James' request, Ronnie quickly got up and picked up the figure off of the dresser. Then, as he got back to his seat, held it out in front of himself, in the palm of his hand. I wish that we could play again, Ronnie, James said as he lowered his face to the level of the object. Then, as he raised his hand towards Ronnie's, he tried to pick the figure up out of Ronnie's palm. With his attempt, however, his thumb and index finger just passed through the toy as if it wasn't even there. After his attempt to touch the toy, Ronnie looked up to James' face as he saw a single tear rolling down his cheek. James, I wish that we could play too. But what we do have, that a lot of people don't in our situation, is each other and the ability to talk with each other anytime that we want. Understand me, James? Yeah. James said as he wiped his face dry. I thought that I was supposed to be the mentor here. With this, Ronnie smiled at James. Oh yeah. Ronnie, have you noticed something different in your bedroom? With a surprised look on his face, Ronnie shook his head no. What's different in my room? Well, with all sincere honesty, I don't quite know how we did it, but we altered the steel frame to your bed to where there is no longer a sharp corner there. It took 9 years, but at least I got it taken care of before someone else got hurt. I should have gotten that taken care of years ago. I'm sorry guys, Karina said. I just wasn't thinking. Karina. James spoke up again. No one person can fix everything, think of everything, or be in more than one place at a time. Don't put this on your shoulders, you're holding a lot of weight there already. Pausing again, James turned, in a circle, and made eye contact with everyone. Well, it's that time, guys. Sterling says that David's waking up. Remember, Karina? You guys can talk to us anytime that you want. Alright? Okay, James. We'll see you later, hun. As Karina finished her sentence, the hologram image of James vanished. Simultaneously, the still light, from the candles, began to flicker, and then Eddie stood up and turned on the bedroom light. Seconds later, Dave's footsteps could be heard through the ceiling. See? Lloyd said to Sterling as they regrouped, that is how we can communicate with them. Either way, it's still gonna be boring. There's only 3 of us, we can't touch anything except each other, we can't physically interact with Malachi, Ronnie, Eddie, or Nicole. Sterling. James interrupted, you really should have thought about that before you ran out into the road in front of that truck. And you're gonna personally grant me a second chance of life by constantly cramming this error, of mine, down my throat. Right? As Sterling covered his face with his hands, he turned to look away from James. I'm sorry, Sterling. James said, it's just that you are, and always have been, a great person. Yeah, running out into the road, in front of that truck, was a mistake, Sterling. I know that you didn't intend to wind up in this situation. But you did. And, when you did, Ronnie, Malachi, Eddie, Nicole, David, and Karina were hurt once again. I know that you wouldn't ever intentionally hurt them, but this error did hurt them. What we can do now, however, is spend eternity helping them rather than getting ourselves lost in our emotions and complaining about things that we can't change. You're a great person, Sterling. This family needs you, Lloyd, and I to be in good mental condition as we protect them. Understand me? Yeah. You know. When you watch movies or see programs that deal with ghosts, you automatically assume that that is exactly how it's gonna be. Sterling was interrupted as Lloyd returned to the room with his hand in the air. What's up, Lloyd? I just followed Malachi, Nicole, and Karina into Ronnie's bedroom as they looked at his bed frame. They're dumbfounded. Our seance is the only way that people can communicate with us? Sterling asked as he redirected his attention to James. No. There are other ways. Then, on the other hand, there are some people that can just see us naturally. Some can only hear us. Children, on the other hand, normally do see the dead. When they say something about it though, their parents will normally push it off as being their imagination. Next thing you know, the child ends up keeping secrets from their parents, thinking that they won't believe them. How about this ESB thing between Eddie, Malachi, and Ronnie? Sterling continued, are they the only ones with ESB? No. Actually, most people have the ability to some limited forms of ESB or mental telepathy. Most people. I'm sure that I didn't have any abilities related to ESB or mental telepathy. Sure you did, Sterling. Haven't you ever had that feeling that someone was watching you, then you turn your head to find someone staring at you, that was trying to get your attention? At times, out of a crowd? Yeah. Well, that is directly related to ESB and mental telepathy. In Ronnie's, Malachi's, and Eddie's case, however, their minds are chemically tuned to the highest level of ESB and mental telepathy. Look at what they did just before they found and killed Eric Myers. They didn't say a word, out loud, that is. They were in total silence within the use of their ESB then, they each stepped out the back door, knowing exactly what they were about to do. James finished, then held his hand out to Sterling. As Sterling took his hand up in his own, James apologized for his attitude earlier. Thank you, James. You're welcome, Sterling.
In other news, this evening on CNN, the suspect of murdering 2 police officers in Michigan and a 16-year-old boy, in Craig, Colorado, was buried this afternoon just outside of Traverse City, Michigan, in Grand. The deceased, 44-year-old, Eric Myers, was found dead in the early hours of July 16 by Chino Valley officers in Arizona.
We are a small community that is greatly affected by the loss of 2 of our officers.
Frankfurt Chief, Sowa, said.
But we are also a community that will heal, and that healing began when Mr. Myers lost his life. I am not someone that would recommend that a citizen takes the law into their own hands. However, in this situation, I would personally reward the person or persons responsible for putting this killer in his place.
The 16-year-old, that died in Colorado, Sterling Ross, was walking, with a friend, to a local convenience store when Eric Myers hit the teen with his Ford Ranger. Authorities, in Colorado, say that the teen died instantly. The Colorado authorities also say that Eric Myers struck Sterling Ross while officers were in pursuit in an attempt to detain the suspect after a routine pullover.
Sterling was a good friend and very much like a brother to his friends as well.
19-year-old, Malachi DeClue said early this morning at his home.
Sterling has lived with us, in our home, since his grandmother died 3 years ago. Sterling had lived with his grandmother, since about the age of 4, after his own parents were killed in a car accident. He'll be missed very much.
Authorities, in Arizona, are still asking that if anyone has any information in the death of Eric Myers to please call 800-555-3351. Now, for other news.
So, how did I do? Malachi asked as he went back into the house. The press, for CNN, had shown up early as they planned their live interview by Michigan's time. You kept it short, sweet, and honest. Then, as Nicole got up off of the couch, she turned off the television and then hugged her soon-to-be husband. And, I love you so much, honey. Nicole had woken up that morning with the fact that their wedding day, October 9th, was only less than 3 months away. As she hugged him, she squeezed much tighter than normal. Are you all right, Nicole? Malachi felt that something was different from the day before. He had also felt, however, that it most likely wasn't something bad though, by the fact that Nicole was full of smiles and extremely physically flirtatious. Of course I'm all right. Pausing for a moment, as she looked at her watch, she realized that David and Karina were both still at work. You know, Ronnie and Eddie are still asleep, honey. And your parents are at work. As she spoke, she lowered her hand from his lower back towards his hips as she pulled him closer. Together they walked over to the couch and laid down. I love you, Nicole, Malachi said as he pulled her on top of himself. Then, as he pulled her upper body upward, to where they were looking at one another, eye to eye, Malachi carefully tilted her head to where her neck was fully exposed to his teeth. And I will love you forever, he said as he opened his jaws wide and then buried his canines deep into the soft tissues below her ear. Oh. Malachi. Nicole had wanted to become infected by Malachi but hadn't gotten herself the urge to ask. Now, as her wish was being granted, she allowed herself to fall limp, within Malachi's arms, as she quickly lost consciousness. Crawling out from under Nicole, Malachi stood up and then covered her with the Afghan, off of the back of the couch. As he bent over, to tuck in the edges of the Afghan under her, the phone began to ring. Hello. Hi honey, this is your mom. I watched your interview on CNN here at the PD. You did a good son. Thank you mom. That's the first, and hopefully the last time, that I have to do that though. Well I hope that it won't be in those circumstances, anyway, if you should ever be interviewed again. Anyway Malachi, you looked good on television. Now, I'll talk to you later when I get home. Alright honey? Okay mom. I love you. Peace. As Malachi hung up the phone, Eddie was just walking into the kitchen. Good morning Eddie. Good morning. I'm surprised to see you up so early, Eddie continued as he headed directly for the coffee maker. CNN was here early this morning for an interview. Today was Eric Meyer's funeral in Michigan. CNN wanted to show how Eric Meyer's actions had affected others outside of Michigan. You were on television? Eddie was shocked as he listened to Malachi and then even spilled some of the coffee as he was pouring it. Yeah. Cameras, microphones. As Malachi was talking to Eddie, he was a little stunned by Eddie's reactions. Reporters, telly. Eddie. Are you alright? Well. Of course I am Malachi. I never knew anyone that was on television. That's cool. Eddie finished as he bent over, to the floor, with some paper towel. Where is Nicole? She is asleep on the couch. And I've got something to tell y'all Eddie, Malachi said as he opened the lid, to the trash can, for his friend. What's that? You know how Sterling, my dad, and Nicole have been the only ones that are not like the rest of us. Yeah. Eddie responded with an odd look on his face. Well. There is only one person living in our house that isn't a vampire. Turning to face, and point, towards Nicole's direction, Malachi continued. She's not asleep Eddie. She is unconscious. You finally did it? Eddie was shocked, once again in one morning, and then walked into the living room. Well. Where did you get her? On the right side of her neck. The side closer to the couch. Reaching over her, Malachi pulled up the corner of the Afghan to show Eddie. It's working too, Eddie said as he looked closely at the bite, it's almost healed. Palpating the left side of Nicole's neck he noted, to himself, that her heart rate was faster than average, for an average person. Eddie knew, however, that the heart rate, or pulse, was similar to daywalkers in female vampires. This is how Mrs. Sanchez had gotten away, without telling Karina about vampires, until her run-in with the photo of her great-grandfather. How long ago did you bite her? Eddie asked as he turned to face him. Maybe about 20 minutes ago. Bending over again, Malachi recovered Nicole's face. Do you think something's wrong? No. No Malachi. Nothing's wrong. It's just that this is only the second time, in our lifetime, that a vampire infected someone. I was the first. In fact that's the second time that you have infected someone. Sounds like it's almost time for you and Ronnie to pass on the genes, Malachi said with a smirk look on his face. Well I've got a funny feeling that Belinda is gonna be the next fish on the line. It was just Lloyd and James talking about Belinda and Ronnie having 2 children. Now, Sterling is saying it. And Malachi interrupted. Nicole and I having 1 child. I wonder why they haven't said anything about you having offspring? Well just take my word for it, that I'm not gonna rush myself into any extra responsibilities. God knows that. Suddenly, Nicole quickly sat up on the couch as she screamed loudly. "It's all right, Nicole, I'm here for you," Malachi said as he sat down next to her and wrapped his arms around her shoulders. "What's wrong, honey?" "I just had a bad dream. There was this old man chasing me, there was a child too. And Malachi." "You were in the dream," Nicole continued as Malachi and Eddie both looked at each other. "Yeah. It's working." As Malachi continued to hold Nicole, Eddie noticed that the bite marks were completely gone. It was almost 2 o'clock when Karina had gotten home from work. As she walked into the kitchen, she had paperwork that she had to fill out for her full retirement income plan, of which also included medical benefits. "Hi guys," she said as she sat down at the table. Then, as if Ronnie was waiting on her, he walked out of his bedroom with all of his hair, on the left side of his head, flattened as the rest of his hair just stuck out into all directions. "And good morning to you, Ronnie." "Good morning, Mom," he managed with a slight smile. "Hey Mom," Malachi said as he set down a cup of coffee, "besides the interview this morning, something else has happened also." "What's that, hun?" Karina asked as she took her attention off of the paperwork. At the same time, Ronnie seemed to have fully awakened to the implication that something might be wrong. "Well," looking up to Nicole, as she walked into the kitchen, "Nicole is now one of us." "Well, about time, guys." Then, as Karina stood up to give Nicole a hug, she continued, "Congratulations, Nicole." "Thank you. I just couldn't believe how fast it worked," Nicole said as she continued to embrace Karina. "Unfortunately though, I awoke with a nightmare." "Oh honey." Karina let go of the hug. "Wait here for a minute, Nicole. I've gotta go get that little black book so that we can keep track of your nightmares too." Then Karina quickly left and then returned less than a minute later. Nicole knew that Karina had made it her personal mission to solve each of the puzzled nightmares that haunted the household. Even if it meant donating her own time and effort, Nicole would do anything that she could to put an end to the terror. Almost an hour after Karina had gotten home from work, Dave had walked in, immediately calling his oldest son's name. "Malachi." "Yeah, Dad?" Malachi responded as he walked to the top step of the staircase and looked down towards his father. "Well, there's my little TV star. You did a great job this morning, Malachi. I think that I had everyone at the city hall watching the news this morning." Malachi could tell that his dad was extremely excited. He wished so much, sometimes, that he could share news with his dad in regards to the vampirish ways within the home. He wanted so much to tell his dad about what had taken place with Nicole. "Thank you, Dad. I think that it was cool to have been on television." Then Malachi remained there, at the top step, as he watched his dad walk up the stairs and then open his arms for a hug. "I love you, Dad." "I love you too, bud," David said, and then walked into the kitchen. "Hi honey. You ready for your big day tomorrow?" David asked as Malachi, Eddie, Nicole, and Ronnie headed downstairs. "Yeah. I guess," Karina said as she thumbed through the rest of her paperwork. "I'm already missing Larry and Kim." "I know you are. Just think though, within the next 5 years or so I'll be doing the same thing. Then you and I will have every day and all day together." Dave finished with a big grin on his face. "You know, Dave, I'm thinking that perhaps it might make it even better for us if you and I were to go and rent one of the apartments next to my mom. The kids are old enough to take care of themselves in the house, and it would cost much more for them to move out. We could start our peace and quiet before you retire." "How about Ronnie?" David asked as he sat down next to his wife. "Well, between Malachi, Nicole, and Eddie, they do pretty good right now at making sure that his needs are met. They cook most of the meals right now, they help Ronnie with his at-home schooling, and all 3 of them are extremely protective of him too." "You're right. I think that we should wait until after Nicole's and Malachi's wedding though. Consider this as one of our wedding gifts to them." "All right. After I get out of work tomorrow, I'm gonna clean out Sterling's bedroom. Are you sure that you're ready for that, Karina? If you would like, I could do that instead. No, Dave. I think that maybe it would help me in dealing with his death if I did this. While she spoke, her eyes began to water up. Okay. If you think that this will help. As David stood back up, he walked around her, then gave her a hug. Where did the boys go? I think that they're down to Eddie's room. What's up? I think that it's time for another yard sale. I want them to gather up the stuff in the garage and price them. It might be better to wait until you're done with Sterling's room though. Some of the stuff, most of the stuff, is Sterling's furniture in the garage. We might want to keep a lot of that so that we won't be looking for more after you and I move out, Karina said as she stood up. I'm gonna go and get out of my uniform. All right, honey. How about grilled cheese for dinner? Dave asked as he pulled out a block of pre-sliced cheese. Sounds good to me. Make sure though to make us full. That might mean going out to the garage and getting another 5-gallon bucket of ice cream. As Karina spoke, she was walking down the hallway towards her bedroom, causing Dave to only hear part of her suggestion involving ice cream. Opening up the freezer door, in the kitchen, he realized that there was none in the house. I think that we're gonna have to get another bucket of ice cream out of the garage, honey, Dave said loudly, so that Karina could hear him, through the closed bedroom door. That's what I said, Dave. Karina responded.